He went from starring in Cory in the House to potentially facing a real-life big house. Former Disney Channel actor Kyle Massey ended up accused of sending explicit photos to a 13-year-old girl. But according to Kyle, the situation wasn't criminal behavior. It was an attempted setup for money, although the way he explained it left people even more confused. My response to these allegations is, first off, we gotta go back. The moment he said first off, you already knew things weren't sounding great. Kyle Massey has become yet another example of childhood nostalgia colliding with adult controversy. So today we're breaking down the full timeline, because the entire story is genuinely wild. Kyle's path into acting wasn't driven by passion or some lifelong dream. He actually entered the industry because of his older brother, Chris, who played Michael on the Nickelodeon sitcom Zoe 101. Kyle would simply accompany his mom and brother to auditions. Eventually, casting directors noticed him, and he accidentally ended up auditioning himself. At first, his mother didn't even want him involved. She worried he would ruin Chris's opportunity. But after pulling him into the room anyway, Kyle landed the job. Ironically, he joked that he basically stole the role from his own brother. The family later relocated from Atlanta to Los Angeles so both boys could continue acting. Kyle nearly played Beans on the Disney Channel series Even Stevens. Instead, producers were developing a new sitcom, That's So Raven, and cast him there instead. That decision changed everything. That's So Raven follows Raven Baxter, a teenager who randomly experiences psychic visions of the future. The show's structure was simple but clever. Raven sees something embarrassing or disastrous. She tries to stop it. Her interference causes it to happen anyway. The formula rarely changed, yet audiences loved it. Because the real appeal wasn't the plot. It was the chemistry between Raven, Eddie, Chelsea, and Raven's younger brother Cory, played by Kyle Massey. Cory is introduced as a scheming, confident kid constantly trying to make fast money, impress people, or outsmart adults. He's cocky, clever, and absolutely convinced he's the smartest person in every room. Much like Megan from Drake and Josh, Cory always believes he's 10 steps ahead, even when he isn't. His rivalry with Raven became one of the most relatable sibling dynamics on Disney Channel. They constantly teased each other, sabotaged each other, and annoyed each other, but clearly cared deeply underneath. The only unrealistic part? He was funnier and smoother than most real little brothers. From day one, That's So Raven was massive. The premiere drew over 3 million viewers, higher than any Disney Channel original series debut at the time. Even random episodes years later still pulled around 5 million viewers. The cast earned dozens of award nominations, books were released, video games launched, and the show even received Emmy nominations. After 100 episodes, the series completely reshaped Disney Channel programming. And Disney wanted to keep the success going. The humor comes from how ridiculous his behavior feels in such a serious environment. While the spin-off never reached the cultural impact of That's So Raven, it still performed well on cable television. Some weeks it was even the most watched program on the network. Originally Disney planned 3 seasons, but during filming of a season 2 episode, something went wrong. The script required Cory to fall off a large boat. Normally the crew would modify the set for safety, but because the boat was rented, they couldn't. The plan: Kyle stands near the edge, stunt double jumps, lands on padded mats. Instead, Kyle jumped himself. He thought it would be funnier. He landed awkwardly, rolled off the pads, and smashed his head onto the concrete studio floor. He was rushed to the hospital. After recovering, he returned to finish filming, but the show wouldn't survive long anyway. Around the same time, the 2007 to 2008 Writers Guild strike began. Hollywood writers stopped working because studios were making massive profits while paying them very little. Production across the industry shut down. Shows were shortened, canceled, or replaced with reality TV. Cory in the House was one of the casualties. Disney ultimately aired only 34 episodes, and suddenly Kyle Massey's future in Hollywood looked uncertain. Like many child actors, he faced a familiar problem. He was strongly tied to his Disney persona: energetic, goofy, safe, making it difficult for studios to cast him as an adult. In 2010, he joined season 11 of Dancing with the Stars and finished runner-up with partner Lacey Schwimmer. He kept taking family-friendly roles, including voicing Milo in the animated series Fish Hooks from 2010 to 2014, paid consistently. But it wasn't exactly a thriving acting career. Meanwhile, media outlets were desperate for a shocking narrative. Rumors, exaggerated stories, and viral gossip, the typical "look how this kid star fell apart" storyline. At one point, the internet even claimed Kyle had cancer. He publicly denied it, saying the rumor was insensitive and completely false. Another reason he stayed in headlines was his friendship with Justin Bieber. Both became famous very young, and they bonded over shared experiences. That connection likely pushed Kyle toward music, especially since acting opportunities slowed down. He began releasing hip-hop tracks online, rapping about women and money. He even produced a song for French Montana in 2015 and appeared on a track with Soulja Boy. But the rap lifestyle also brought danger. His brother Chris was often in studios with artists and producers. Then, in November 2014, Chris threw a party at his penthouse apartment. After an argument, rapper Lil Twist left, then returned 30 minutes later with 4 men. They forced their way inside, assaulted Chris with brass knuckles, humiliated him, and stole his wallet and phone. He needed medical treatment. Twist was later charged with multiple felonies and sentenced to a year in jail followed by probation. By the mid-2010s, Kyle's life looked strange from the outside. He traveled constantly with Justin Bieber, attending concerts, parties, and celebrity events. He lived the lifestyle of someone extremely successful, but he didn't actually have a major TV or film role to justify it. He was essentially orbiting the biggest pop star of the decade. That almost changed in 2015. The original That's So Raven cast reunited on The View. When asked what he was currently working on, Kyle gave a vague answer. Fans immediately suspected a reboot, especially since Disney had success reviving old shows. And they were right. A continuation series was coming. Only, Kyle wouldn't be part of it. The continuation series would be called Raven's Home. But unlike the original, Kyle Massey wasn't invited back, and things were about to get much worse. He would soon be accused of promising a young girl a role on the show, and then sending explicit images to her. The alleged victim, whose identity stayed hidden because she was underage, claimed she first met Kyle when she was 4 years old. At that time, Kyle was about 18 or 19 and had already finished Cory in the House. She wanted to pursue entertainment, so she stayed in contact with him over the years. Eventually, he became familiar with both her and her family. Later, he suggested she travel from Seattle to Los Angeles to stay with him and his girlfriend. According to the girl and her mother, he acted like a father figure. Communication between them reportedly increased in late 2018, right when she became interested in joining the reboot. Raven's Home premiered in 2017 and followed a similar concept to the original. Raven is now a single mother in Chicago raising twins who inherited her psychic visions. The show reunites her with Chelsea and her father Victor, along with appearances from several familiar characters. However, both Orlando Brown and Kyle Massey were missing. Kyle publicly said he wasn't sure whether he'd appear, but hoped to at least guest star someday. It was obvious he wanted back in. He needed the comeback, but it never happened. In November 2018, casting for Season 3 included multiple female characters aged 11 to 13. Because Kyle had been in the original show, the girl likely believed he had industry connections. He contacted her mother and invited the girl to stay in Los Angeles so he could help her find representation. Then, according to the accusation, about a month later he added her on Snapchat. Soon afterward, he allegedly sent explicit messages, photos, and videos. When the allegations became public, Kyle strongly denied wrongdoing. He said no child should ever receive explicit material and insisted the claims were false. He also stated the girl's attorneys demanded $1.5 million and threatened to ruin his career if he refused, calling it extortion. His mother went online defending him using the hashtag #HeToo, arguing men can also be falsely accused. She even suggested the image had been sent to the girl's mother instead of the child. For 2 years, nothing definitive happened. Then, in June 2021, the case resurfaced. Kyle was formally charged in Washington state with immoral communication with a minor, a felony. His legal team responded saying the allegations had already been dismissed once and the accusers were trying again for revenge. Because he didn't appear at his arraignment, a judge issued a $100,000 arrest warrant. But here's where things became strange. Records showed the warrant existed, yet there was no public confirmation he was ever arrested. Kyle later claimed he was filming a television production at the exact time authorities said he had been taken into custody. He argued the system created a false arrest record to force a court date. Whether that was an administrative mistake or something else remains unclear, but it became central to his defense. Then the story took an unexpected turn. Kyle claimed he himself had been a victim, alleging the girl's mother had an inappropriate relationship with him when he was 15. According to his lawyer, he met her years earlier in California when he was still a minor. They argued she wanted him to become a partner and father figure and was chasing Disney money. Kyle said helping the daughter was simply mentorship because he had been helped in his own career. He explained that since becoming famous young, many kids approached him with dreams, and he often encouraged them. But his explanation changed over time. First, the situation was entirely fabricated extortion. Later, he admitted an accidental message had been sent, claiming the explicit content wasn't intended for the girl, and that contradiction raised serious questions. Even if unintentional, it still meant inappropriate communication occurred. Even with all the accusations and defenses going back and forth, one thing stood out. Kyle first said the entire situation was fake, pure extortion, then later admitted some communication happened, just by accident. So even inside a messy he said she said case, there was still acknowledgement that something inappropriate occurred, and that alone raised serious concerns. Years passed. The charge remained unresolved, and no clear legal outcome was publicly confirmed. Meanwhile, Kyle continued posting photos online, hanging out with influencers, rappers, and celebrities. He didn't appear with Justin Bieber much anymore, but he still stayed close enough to fame to remain around new stars. The only problem, his career wasn't actually recovering. He struggled to land more than tiny background roles in low-budget projects. He briefly appeared in a sitcom called Millennials in 2021, but it was canceled after 2 seasons. After the allegations, Hollywood essentially stopped calling. Eventually, he stopped posting on social media entirely. One person who didn't stay quiet, though, was his former co-star Orlando Brown. He openly mocked Kyle online, telling him to deal with the accusations in court. At this point, Kyle mostly appears occasionally on podcasts. He still releases music, but barely promotes it. One recent song even celebrated Donald Trump's re-election. And that brings us to the bigger picture. Kyle Massey was another child star raised inside an industry machine that rewards fame before emotional maturity. At best, he struggled to transition into adulthood. At worst, he became involved in behavior that permanently damaged his reputation. Whether he was failed by the system, influenced by the people around him, or simply made terrible decisions, the result is the same. A childhood icon's image is effectively destroyed. And strangely, his That's So Raven co-star Orlando Brown experienced a similarly shocking downfall. But that's a completely different story.